Okay, before we get started on today's subject, I first want to do a quick recap from video 1. If you haven't had a chance to watch video 1 yet, I would recommend you go back and do so now for context. But just very quickly, what we talked about is position reclassification. And position reclassification is the process by which employee changes can be made and then synchronized back to their corresponding position in order to keep everything in sync. Why is this important? Well, because it enables you to make changes directly on the employee instead of having to make some changes on the position and then some changes on the employee. This makes for a much more intuitive process. Unfortunately, and this is the subject of today's video, position reclassification does not work in 100% of cases, which does cause some problems. So a couple of gaps with position reclassification. Number one, position reclassification does not occur when you are correcting an existing employee's record. So if you're just going in and editing a record and making some changes, those changes do not synchronize back to the position. Number two, the process is reliant on the processor to choose to move the employee's position underneath the new supervisor. What does that mean? Well, it'll make a lot more sense when I demonstrate that here in a bit. Okay, so why does it matter that employees and positions can get out of sync? Well, number one, it can cause confusion and require some reconciliation when the two get out of sync. And then number two, it basically, whenever things are inconsistent, it undermines confidence in the system, and nobody wants that. So now let's move forward and let's look at a couple of examples of the gaps and how they show up in the position and employee hierarchies and how those things can get out of sync now. Okay, let's start with scenario 1. In this scenario, an employee, Hulk Banner, was transferred to a new position, but the cost center was incorrect. So HR admin goes into Hulk Banner's record and corrects the cost center. However, the cost center does not update on the position, and that makes Hulk mad. All right, let's watch the scenario. Okay, so I'm in as HR admin, and I just want to fix the cost center. So go in here, use the correction, and I change the cost center. He's now should be in a marketing position. Marketing cost center, I mean. And I'm done. I have updated the cost center on the employee. But unbeknownst to me, as an HR administrator, I still have not updated the cost center on the position. So the position is now out of sync. Okay, so that's one scenario where the employee and position can get out of sync. Let's look at another. So in this scenario, Creed Batten is being moved to a new supervisor. Everything else is going to stay the same. Okay, so I'm going to just go into Creed's record. And I am going to update the supervisor. And when I do, you will see that a new radio button appears here. Move currently assigned position below new supervisor's position. And based on my real world experience with clients, I would say that the processors probably run about 50% on whether they select this radio button or not. And as you'll notice that they do have to select this, flip this to yes. So let's see what happens when this radio button is not set. So I'm going to press save. And you're going to see that it's going to create a workflow. Okay, so now let's go in as the approver. So I'm going to go in as the approver for this transaction. And I'm going to go in and view the details. And you will notice that the supervisor change is noted here. But notice what is not here. We do not see anything that says that radio button has not been selected, and so therefore the position and the employee are going to be out of sync. So I'm going to approve this. So that's been approved. So now let's look at the impact. So I'm going to just do this all from the position org chart because I believe it's simpler. Look up Creed and you'll see that he is still reporting to Michael Scott on the position org chart, but if you look at his supervisor, it is now Harry Potter. So once again, we have a scenario where the position and the employee are out of sync. So once again, here's an example where just through normal processing, the position and the employee could get out of sync. So now let's look at a potential solution. Okay, so what have we done up to now? In part one, we went through and extolled the virtues of position reclassification, explained how it really helps create intuitive processes. In today's video, we have looked at a couple of gaps that prevent the synchronization from happening in all cases. So with respect to those gaps, just a little background, I did put in an enhancement request to SuccessFactors to recommend trying to make sure that in all cases, any changes to the employee synchronize back in trying to get rid of these gaps. Unfortunately, SuccessFactors did respond back and they said the idea had merit, but it wasn't on the roadmap as of now. So I just kind of went on about my business, but recently I came up with what I believe is a potential solution for the problem. And I'm going to demonstrate the solution that eliminates these gaps now. So right now what I'm going to do is just kind of whet your appetite by showing you the solution. And then in part three, we're going to get into the solution in detail. So why am I doing this? Well, what I'm hoping is that the more adventurous among you might try this on some of your implementations and then report back and let me know whether this is working for you or not. If it's not, then I'll probably what I will do is I'm going to post out a part 4 video where I'm going to talk about the gaps and some challenges that we're having with the solution. But again, my goal here is to try to come up with a way to ensure that we get synchronization back from the employee to the position in all cases. So without further ado, let's jump in and let's look at the solution. Let me explain what you're going to be seeing. So what I'm going to show you is not really a valid business scenario. It's really just intended to stress test the solution so that you can understand how it's going to work. So in our example, the HR admin is going to go in and they're going to manually update through the clock several fields on the employee, Brian Paulson, without going through take action. They're going to change a location, change cost center, change job code, and then lastly, also change supervisor, but with no radio button. So normally, if we went through all these steps manually, for sure, your position and your employee would be greatly out of sync. So now let's see what happens in our example. Okay, so for context, we're going to start at the position org chart, and you're going to see here that we have Brian Paulson, who's under Russell Goddard, and we're going to go into Brian's record. We're going to go do this in a kind of unorthodox manner in order to demonstrate the power of the solution. So we're going to go in through the clock, and from here we're going to manually insert. And as we demonstrated already, we know that this kind of change would not automatically update the position. So we're going to go in. First, we have to put in the action and action reason, which is what what we're doing now. And then we are going to go through and update the location and the cost center and the supervisor and the job code. Update the cost center. And then you'll notice that we have the supervisor again of Russell Goddard, and we're going to update that now to be Sal Sullivan. And you'll notice that the radio button does not appear when we do that, and that's because we are in an expert mode. So the radio button not appearing means that for sure the supervisor should be getting out of sync with the position. So I've also updated the job classification, and now I'm getting ready to save. Now when I do save, you will see that there is no workflow prompt. And of course that is because we're going in expert mode. So there is no workflow. So now let's see what happens when we go back and look at the position org chart. Okay, so now looking at the position org chart, we can look at Russell Goddard, and you will see that there is no, Brian Paulson is no longer reporting to him in the position org structure. And now also, if we go and look at Brian Paulson, you will see that there are several fields that got updated automatically when we made the change directly to the employees. Okay, so this concludes part 2 in our series. In part 3, we're going to go through the solution in detail, so get ready to roll up your sleeves. Thanks a lot.